The mist of Bells Yew Green. Dr. Sarah Martinez stood at the edge of Bells Yew Green, her camera poised to capture images of the historic village for her upcoming book on rural English settlements. The morning had started typically enough: dewy grass, birdsong, and the distant bleating of sheep. But now, something was different. A peculiar cloud hung low over the eastern fields, its edges tinged with an unsettling greenish hue. "Unusual weather we're having," remarked an elderly man walking his dog. "Never seen anything quite like it in my 60 years here." Sarah nodded, her historian's instincts telling her to document this strange phenomenon. As she adjusted her camera settings, she noticed the cloud wasn't behaving like ordinary fog. It moved with purpose, almost as if it were crawling. 5 miles away in Tunbridge Wells, Emma Blackwood was hanging laundry in her back garden, trying to take advantage of the rare sunny morning. Her thoughts drifted to the usual domestic concerns: dinner plans, her husband's upcoming business trip, and whether she'd have time to attend the local council meeting about the new shopping center. The radio droned in the background, its morning show suddenly interrupted by static. At Tunbridge Wells Grammar School, best friends Jack Harrison and Priya Patel sat in their history class, more focused on their upcoming weekend plans than their teacher's lecture about the Norman conquest. Jack was secretly checking his phone under the desk when he noticed several worried messages from his cousin in Bells Yew Green. "Weird stuff happening here," read the first message. "Everyone's acting strange." Then, "Mum's not answering her phone." And finally, "Something's wrong. Really wrong." The messages had been sent 20 minutes ago. Jack nudged Priya, showing her the texts. She frowned, about to respond when the school's fire alarm suddenly blared to life. Emma Blackwood was the first to notice something was amiss in Tunbridge Wells proper. The birds had stopped singing, and an unnatural silence fell over her neighborhood. The static on her radio had given way to an emergency broadcast, but the message was garbled, only catching fragments about staying indoors, an unknown atmospheric phenomenon. She was about to head inside when she spotted her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, standing motionless in her garden. "Everything all right, Mrs. Peterson?" Emma called out. The old woman turned slowly, and Emma's blood ran cold. Mrs. Peterson's eyes were clouded over. Her skin had taken on a grayish tinge, and dark veins were visible beneath her papery skin. Before Emma could react, Mrs. Peterson lurched forward with inhuman speed, her arthritic movements replaced by predatory grace. Emma slammed her back door shut just in time, her heart pounding as gnarled fingers scraped against the glass. Dr. Martinez had already witnessed the beginning of the horror. As the strange mist had rolled through Bells Yew Green, people caught in its path had changed. Some had simply frozen in place, becoming statue-like figures with clouded eyes. Others had transformed into something far worse: aggressive, mindless creatures that attacked anyone nearby who hadn't been touched by the mist. She'd managed to escape in her rental car, but not before capturing several photographs and videos that she prayed would help authorities understand what they were dealing with. As she sped toward Tunbridge Wells, her historian's mind raced through similar incidents in history: the dancing plague of 1518, the London smog of 1952, but nothing quite matched this. The car's radio crackled with emergency broadcasts, each more dire than the last. The strange cloud was expanding, moving northwest toward Tunbridge Wells at an alarming rate. Military forces were being mobilized, but it would take time for them to arrive. Time that the people of Tunbridge Wells might not have. At Tunbridge Wells Grammar School, chaos erupted as students and teachers evacuated the building. Jack and Priya found themselves separated from their classmates in the confusion. Through gaps in the crowd, they could see the strange mist approaching from the direction of Bells Yew Green, rolling across the landscape like a living thing. "We need to get inside somewhere safe," Priya said, pulling Jack toward the school's science building. "My dad's been studying atmospheric phenomena for years. He always said if something strange happens in the air, get to the highest point you can with the best filtration system." The science building had both a rooftop greenhouse and a state-of-the-art air filtration system for the chemistry labs. As they raced inside, they could hear screams from the main school grounds. Neither dared to look back. Emma Blackwood had barricaded herself in her house, watching in horror as more of her neighbors succumbed to the mist. Through her window, she could see people running, while others, those already changed, pursued them with unnatural speed and strength. She needed to move, to find somewhere safer. But where? Her husband Mark wasn't answering his phone. He worked at the hospital on the other side of town, and she had no way of knowing if the mist had reached there yet. The local news website had crashed, and social media was full of panicked, contradictory reports. A crash from her kitchen made her jump. Mrs. Peterson had broken through the back door. Emma grabbed her car keys and ran for the front door, only to find the mist had already reached her street. She was trapped. Dr. Martinez's car sputtered to a stop on Mount Ephraim, the main road leading into Tunbridge Wells. The mist was playing havoc with electrical systems, and her modern rental car was no exception. She grabbed her backpack, which contained her camera, research materials, and thankfully, a bottle of water and some granola bars. As she walked briskly toward the town center, she noticed something crucial. The mist seemed to move more slowly uphill. The higher areas of Tunbridge Wells might stay clear longer, giving them time to understand what they were dealing with and possibly find a way to stop it. Her phone buzzed with a text from a colleague at Cambridge University. She'd managed to send him some of her photos before the cell service became spotty. His message was brief but significant. Similar incident recorded in parish records from 1644. Check old church archives if you can. May find answer there. The next few hours would bring these four strangers together in ways they could never have imagined. Jack and Priya, watching from their rooftop vantage point, spotted Emma running from building to building, trying to stay ahead of both the mist and the transformed residents. They used the school's emergency light system to signal her, guiding her to the science building. Dr. Martinez, making her way through the increasingly chaotic streets, saw the same signal. Her historian's training had taught her to look for patterns, to piece together seemingly unrelated facts into coherent narratives. As she joined the others in their rooftop sanctuary, she shared what her colleague had discovered about the 1644 incident. According to the parish records, she explained, catching her breath, something similar happened during the English Civil War. A strange mist appeared in the same area, transforming people in the same way. But they found a way to stop it, Emma asked, helping Priya barricade the greenhouse door. The records are unclear, but they mention the bells of St. Augustine's Church playing a crucial role. Something about the frequency of the sound disrupting whatever was controlling the mist. Jack's eyes widened. The old church is still there. My dad's the caretaker. He showed me how the bell system works last summer. But how do we get there? Priya asked, pointing to the chaos below. The mist had transformed nearly half the town's population, and the changed ones were hunting down the rest with frightening efficiency. Emma stood up straighter, her earlier fear giving way to determination. I used to volunteer with the Historical Society. There's an old tunnel system under the town, dating back to World War II. One of them leads from near here to the church. What followed was a harrowing journey through Tunbridge Wells' forgotten underground passages. The teenager's youth and agility, Emma's local knowledge, and Dr. Martinez's historical expertise all proved crucial to their survival. They encountered others along the way. Some they could save, others they were forced to leave behind. The tunnels were a maze of darkness and echoes, every sound potentially signaling danger. They discovered that the transformed humans couldn't see well in darkness, but had developed an acute sense of hearing. Moving silently became their greatest defense. Above ground, military helicopters attempted to evacuate survivors, but the mist seemed to reach higher with each passing hour. News reports from neighboring towns grew increasingly desperate as the phenomenon expanded its reach. When they finally emerged near St. Augustine's Church, they found the buildings surrounded by the transformed. The mist was thinner here, at one of the highest points in Tunbridge Wells, but it was only a matter of time before it completely enveloped this sanctuary too. The bell control system is digital now, Jack explained as they crept through a side entrance. But there's a manual backup. Dad insisted on keeping it, said you never know when you might need the old ways. Dr. Martinez was examining the historical documents stored in the church office. The 1644 account mentions a specific sequence of bells, something about calling back the lost souls. The old bell ringing patterns are still recorded here, Emma said, pulling out a dusty manual. They use different sequences for different occasions: weddings, funerals, celebrations, warnings. Priya, who played violin in the school orchestra, studied the musical notations. These aren't just random sequences. They're harmonics, designed to resonate at specific frequencies. They worked quickly, knowing their time was running out. Outside, the transformed townspeople seemed to sense their presence, gathering in greater numbers around the church. The mist was creeping higher, starting to seep through gaps in the old windows. Jack made his way to the bell tower, following his father's careful instructions from the previous summer. Emma and Dr. Martinez barricaded the doors, while Priya calculated the correct sequence based on the old documents and her musical training. When the first bell rang out, the effect was immediate. The transformed humans below stopped their relentless assault on the church doors. The second bell caused them to stumble, as if confused. By the third, the mist itself seemed to recoil. "Keep going," Dr. Martinez shouted up to Jack. The pattern in 1644 lasted for a full hour. Jack's arms burned with the effort of ringing the massive bells, but he persisted. Emma and Priya took turns helping him, maintaining the precise sequence that Priya had decoded. Dr. Martinez documented everything with her camera, knowing this record might be crucial if the phenomenon ever returned. Slowly, the mist began to dissipate. Those who had been transformed gradually returned to normal, though many would have no memory of their time under the mist's influence. Military and emergency services moved in as the danger receded, establishing treatment centers and beginning the process of understanding what had happened. In the days that followed, experts from around the world descended on Tunbridge Wells, trying to understand the phenomenon. Dr. Martinez's photographs and videos proved invaluable, as did the historical records that had helped them stop the mist. Scientists discovered traces of an unknown compound in the soil near Bells Yew Green, suggesting a possible natural source for the mist, though its exact origin remained a mystery. Emma returned to her house to find her husband safe. The hospital's modern air filtration system had protected its occupants. She would never look at her quiet suburban life quite the same way again, but she had discovered a strength in herself she never knew existed. Jack and Priya became minor celebrities at school, though they found their classmates' attention less interesting than their new fascination with local history and science. They began spending their free time helping Dr. Martinez research other historical anomalies in the area, wondering if there were more forgotten incidents waiting to be discovered. Dr. Martinez's book changed focus entirely. Instead of a simple history of rural English settlements, it became an investigation into the intersection of folklore, history, and unexplained phenomena. She maintained regular contact with her 3 fellow survivors, knowing that their unique combination of skills and knowledge had been crucial to their survival. The people of Tunbridge Wells slowly returned to their normal lives, though change was evident everywhere. The town installed a new emergency warning system, and bell-ringing classes at St. Augustine's suddenly became very popular. The old tunnel system was mapped and maintained, marked with signs that everyone hoped would never be needed again. But sometimes on quiet mornings, people would look toward Bells Yew Green with unease, watching for any signs of unusual clouds on the horizon. The town had survived its brush with the inexplicable, but its residents now knew that behind the veil of ordinary life, extraordinary dangers could lurk. In the church archive, Dr. Martinez found one final note about the 1644 incident, written in faded ink at the bottom of the page. "Though the mist has gone, its memory lingers. We must remain vigilant, for some forces in this world sleep rather than die, waiting for the right moment to wake again." She shared this discovery with Emma, Jack, and Priya over tea in the cafe where they now met regularly. They had all changed. Emma was taking evening classes in local history, Jack was learning traditional bell ringing, and Priya had started researching sound frequencies in her spare time. They were no longer just survivors. They were guardians of a secret knowledge, keeping watch over their town in case the mist ever returned. As they talked, the bells of St. Augustine's rang out across Tunbridge Wells, their familiar sound both a comfort and a reminder of that day when the ordinary world had cracked open to reveal something extraordinary. The four friends smiled at each other, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. The end.